Hello and welcome to the Horse Show podcast with me, Chris Stafford. My guest this week is US-based Australian Eventer Ema Klugman, who started to turn heads this spring riding her season partner Bendigo and making herself at home in her 5-star debut, where the pair finished 33rd. For the 23-year-old to realise just one of her life ambitions with a horse she has had since she was 14 is the dream of many horse-mad girls. Her confidence and panache were evident as she galloped across the hallowed turf of the Kentucky Horse Park in an unusual year for sport. There were no crowds to cheer her on, but the online audience was taking note. Her coach, Marilyn Little, gave her stride-by-stride instructions, and she never wavered from her task. It seems Ema is now hooked, and riding 5-star events is her overall goal. But there's more to life for the Maryland-based rider who this fall starts law school and faces a new challenge of combining both careers. And outside of these two exacting professions, Ema is in demand as a coach too. Oh, and did I mention that she's a classical pianist? Well, whatever happens, I think it's safe to say Ema has plenty of options for a bright future. And I caught up with her at her home in Maryland to get her reaction to the spring season and to hear what she's planning for the fall season. Ema, hi, welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me on.
Well, thank you for taking the time to do this because you've got quite a busy schedule these days, don't you?
Yeah, fairly busy. Yeah, try not to be bored.
No, you're definitely not. But as we speak, you're at home in Maryland. Tell us a little bit about the setup that you have at home now.
Sure. So I work out of my mom's farm here in Clarksburg, Maryland. It's about 45 minutes north of Washington, D.C. And we've had it for a number of years, sort of expanded from, I guess, just myself and my brother kind of doing pony club and things like that to now more of a training and sales operation. But it's a lovely place. It's sort of 40 acres. We've got a couple of arenas, and we actually have recently developed a bit more of a cross-country schooling field, which is quite fun. And yeah, we're kind of in the heart of Area 2 eventing, which is a big plus. We're about an hour from, 5 or 6 events and about 2 hours from another 5 or 6 events. So from that point of view, it's nice just not to have to travel a very long way to get to shows. Sometimes we'll even do multiple shows in a weekend. We'll go to something on Saturday and something else on Sunday. So I guess it can be a little bit of a curse because we maybe sign up for more things than we should and get the young horses out and things. But it's a great location to be in. And yeah, we love it. This is a great time of year.
How many horses do you have at the farm then, Ema? And how many do you have under your charge, I should say, that you're producing?
Sure. To be honest, I'm not sure exactly how many we have right at this moment. We normally have from about, 7 to 10. We don't have a huge number, but enough to keep us busy. We do not offer boarding, so any horse that's here is basically being trained and ridden by me. We have one of my old advanced horses I lease to a student, and so obviously she rides him, but he's here on the farm and kind of under our eye. So yeah, we've got everything from young horses in training. I do a lot of backing of 3-year-olds. So at the moment we've got a couple of those, which are very rewarding and fun. And then we have, horses that are competing all the way up sort of to the 5-star level. So plenty of variety day to day.
Yeah, for sure. Now, you do other things in your life, which is why you're busy, not just with the horses, but you are going back to school to be a law student. Am I right? Is that still the plan?
That's correct. Yeah, I'm starting at George Washington Law School in just about 2 months. My first year will start, so I'm looking forward to that. I've had about 18 months I guess, off, you would say, or between when I finished undergrad to when I'll be starting. So I'm really excited about that. And, looking forward to it. The school's located in Washington, D.C., so I'll be doing a little bit of commuting in order to still be able to train and ride. But we'll make it work.
This is pretty hard work, being a law student, Emma. How is that going to impact your riding career?
I think time is obviously a very valuable resource, so it'll take some time away from what I do now. But even now, I have a job doing research, and I have actually an internship for a circuit court judge in a courthouse nearby. So at the moment, I'm splitting my time already, and I've been doing that basically most of my life. So it's sort of a natural thing for me. The biggest thing with time management that I've learned, and I'm continuing to learn, is to be good at prioritizing. So thinking about, okay, what are the priorities this week in terms of the horses? If you're preparing for a 5-star, you can't skip a gallop. But if you have a horse that's going training level, you might be able to get someone else to take it for a hack rather than doing dressage on it. So that sort of thing, kind of putting in order what you need to get done and not skipping out on the really vital things. And then the second thing would just be to plan and try not to overextend yourself, which I do quite regularly, but I'm getting better at sort of saying, okay, if someone asks me, can you teach me at this farm on this day? And it's maybe not worth my traveling there, or the timing's not good. I'm getting better at sort of saying no sometimes, even though it may be nice to make some money from teaching or whatever, if it's going to take away from other things that I'm trying to do, then, sometimes you have to say no to things or work something out and say, hey, do you mind actually trailing over to my place so I can fit you in between this time, rather than doing that. So it's a bit of a balance, but I love doing it. And the nice thing is, whether I'm in school or working in a different profession, I get to work different areas of my brain and, have different things going on. So if something's not going that well with the horses, I can find some inspiration or hope in whatever I'm doing in my work life, and vice versa. I had times in undergrad where I would do badly on an exam or have, a really hard time kind of with some material in class, and be able to go and ride and actually feel like, okay, life isn't so bad, and just having those things counterbalancing each other, to me, it is really important and fulfilling.
Well, law, of course, would be a very demanding profession. What would be your career path then once you do graduate from law school?
That is a very good question, to which I don't yet have the answer. Ideally, something that has a little bit of flexibility, which I know not all careers in law have. So it may be that at first I have to have a more demanding job, and then I can create something that works better for me and my goals. But, the miraculous thing about horse sport is you can do it when you're 16 and you can do it when you're 60. So I think the horses will be there. I don't want to necessarily take a long break because I think it's quite hard to stay sharp, and it's also just really hard it takes a long time to produce horses. So you don't want to kind of go away from it when you have the horses that will do the job for you, because it's so hard to, first of all, find them, and second of all, kind of produce them and keep them going. So yeah, I'll get back to you on that one in about 4 years, I think.
But you don't want to be bucked off 3-year-olds, do you, forever? There's going to come a time when that gets a bit old.
Yeah, exactly. I'm pretty good at staying on them.
Good. I'm glad to hear that. in terms of balancing this too, because it's going to be very interesting as obviously as your law career evolves. What are your main goals at this point? You're still 23, am I right? You're you're at the beginning of a career which could go in any direction, clearly. And I know there's another string to your bow we're going to talk about too. So let's have a sense of what those goals are, Emma, right now at this point in time.
In terms of the horses?
Well, everything.
Yeah.
You're multi-skilled there. There's a lot of directions you could go in.
Yeah. I think with the horses, my goal, sort of my big goal is to be able to compete at the 5-star level with some longevity. So being able to have a horse or a couple of horses either at that level or kind of near that level for a while so that I can become competitive at it. Because I think it's hard to get to that level in the first place, but I think it's even harder to stay at that level. And there are amazing riders in our sport who, kind of make a splash and then it's 6 or 8 or even 10 years before they kind of make it back. And it's just hard to stay competitive when you're not doing the hardest events in the world. So, that's sort of an aspiration, and it may not turn out to be very easy to do that, but I'm really lucky to have a handful of supporters and, great coaches and things like that are helping me produce horses like that and kind of keeping an eye out for young ones that may have the potential to do that. Pretty much every horse in my barn, I took to their first event. So, they were not made in any sense of the word. In fact, most of them were fairly rogue. And that's the way that I like to do it. I just feel like when you're doing something unimaginably terrifying like Kentucky, you want to really know the horse like the back of your hand. And if I can keep producing ones like that, I think I have kind of a shot at, maybe not having a horse at the 5-star level for year after year forever, but having ones coming through that I can do that with. So, to win a 5-star, I mean, watching Molly Summerlin do it last week was really inspiring. Obviously, she's very young, but she just basically has the one horse and obviously is, a huge talent, but put all the pieces together. Winning a 5-star would be a huge goal. And then if it came along and it's basically just based on whether you have the form and the experience to be able to represent Australia on a team, that would be kind of a dream come true as well. But I think focusing on the team stuff is actually a little bit the wrong way around of looking at it. It seems to me that you have to be winning or near winning at the biggest shows in the world. And then hopefully the cards will roll in your favor rather than focusing too much on, I want to make this team for this thing. You just have to have the form. And if you're one of the best people in your nationality, then hopefully you'll be picked. So that's a roundabout way of saying kind of what my goals are. And they might take 5 years to achieve. They might take 20. And I don't really mind either way. I just love the riding and I get a huge amount of great feeling from competing. So I'd like to just be able to keep doing that.
I guess that would be the long road, of course. In the meantime, you've got a couple of mares that 8 and 9 years old, are they, that would take over the mantle from Bendigo when he retires? So is that the plan? Is that the hope? That I think RF Redfern and Bronte Beach, they're the two following him along?
Yeah, absolutely. So those are two very exciting horses. Bendigo hopefully will do Fairhill later this year, 5-star, and then we'll sort of see where he's at and how he feels. He's an older horse, but equally, he started eventing as an 11-year-old. So he's kind of a bit of a weird older horse because he doesn't have as many miles as a horse his age might have. So yeah, to be honest, I've sort of chuckled about it recently because I thought by the time I started law school, Ben would be, nice and retired, hanging out in his paddock, maybe being ridden by a young rider and hacking out. But he's obviously still got some gas in the tank. So that wasn't quite part of my plan. I was hoping to sort of just have 2 horses when I was in school, but we'll have to fit him into the schedule. So RF Redfern is I guess coming 8-year-old this year. And she is actually bred for the jumper ring. And it's a very, very cute quite little horse. She's only about 16 hands. And we purchased her about a year and maybe 3 or 4 months ago. And she basically hadn't done much. She was about to start going to her first horse shows, but she had a fall, so she was a little bit behind in her training. And
she came from Marilyn Little, did she?
I was working for Marilyn at the time. So Marilyn kind of spotted the horse and we basically found her together and we tried her, and she was either going to come into the barn as a sales horse or, I was going to buy her. And I think Marilyn said to me at the time, "You're pretty much not going to find anything better than this. So if you can sort of make it happen to be able to purchase the horse, I'll basically hold off on trying to sell her to somebody else," which I'm very glad about. I think Marilyn has an extremely unique eye for horse. Redfern is, she's a lovely looking horse and moves well and jumps well. But at the time I tried her, she looked a little bit, she looked and felt to ride a little bit like a, sort of wiggly young horse. She had been basically a broodmare. So she, when I rode her, I wasn't blown out of the water, we should say. I didn't think that she wasn't a good horse, but I was kind of surprised when Marilyn said, this is probably as good as you're going to find. And she was absolutely right. I mean, the horse has won, I think, 8 or 9 events out of the 11 or 12 that she's been entered in. She's got a pretty good strike rate and she's basically good in all 3 phases, which is difficult to find. So she's been really fun to produce. She just did her first FEI event in Lexington and was very good there in the top 3.
Third.
Yeah. And yeah, so she'll be kind of exciting to keep producing. She's at the preliminary level now, and we'll kind of probably keep her there for a little bit. She's still a little bit green at that level, and then hopefully keep going in the future. So she's a very exciting horse, and I'm very lucky. I've actually just been able to start a syndicate for her. So I've gotten a few people on board with following her and supporting her. And I think she's going to make a lot of people happy. And then the other horse, Bronte Beach, we found as a 5-year-old. And she actually also is basically bred for show jumping. And she's sort of the opposite of Fern. She's a big horse, very tall and long and a little bit, I would say, opinionated. But
mares are typically.
Yeah. She's just kind of a big horse all around. She's got great big ears and plenty of personality, but she has done now 2 3-star longs quite successfully and then moved up to the advanced level. I guess it was in April of this year. So, and I remember finishing the course and thinking the first time I went advanced on Bendigo was actually at that same event at Fairhill. And it felt, unimaginably difficult and at that time I was quite a green rider too. So just the jumps felt huge and everything. And he really had to try. And I went around on Bronte and she just felt like she was going prelim. It was a pretty remarkable feeling. She just has a huge amount of scope and big step, big gallop. She's quite exuberant at times, so it's sort of trying to meet her halfway, as you have to do with mares, but she's really exciting. So she's now qualified for 4-star, and hopefully we'll do a few of those later this year. And yeah, so I mean, sometimes I think, gosh, how did I end up with, not one, but two really great young horses that have, the pieces to go to the top level. And I'm just incredibly lucky to not only have found them, but been able to keep them and produce them. So it's nice to have some girl power in the barn, although Ben regularly sort of makes ugly faces at them and reminds them that he's the 5-star horse.
He's the boss. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you prefer mares, or it does depend on the horse for you?
Yeah, I certainly like horses with lots of personality. I think I get along with ones that are a little bit maybe quirky or, just funny. And, I don't like a dull horse. But yeah, at the moment I've got quite a few mares, and I think we get along fairly well. I mean, the funny thing about Bendigo is he's, he could easily be mistaken for a mare. He's just sort of got, I don't know, he can be very emotional. So it kind of goes with the brand to have mares at the moment.
Yeah. Now, of course, having done your first 5-star at Kentucky back this spring, obviously that's a big deal. I mean, I know it's your goal to be a top 5-star rider, but it can be a little bit overwhelming, of course, being your first go. When you look back in your rearview mirror now that, a few months have passed, what were your biggest takeaways from that experience, Emma?
Probably the number one takeaway was just the fact that I could do it and my horse could do it. I think you hear all the time that, you don't really know if a horse is a 5-star horse until they've actually gone and done one, even if they have the scope to jump, maybe they could jump 1.50 meters, but they may not have the bravery or the cattiness or the intelligence to do a 5-star cross-country horse. So that was obviously really reassuring, because Bendigo not only did the course, but he did it, fairly easily, which was not how I anticipated it feeling. And I think a few things went our way in terms of...
You look very comfortable.
Yeah. But I kind of... People have asked me how it felt going around. And I think the biggest thing I felt was that I was just incredibly surprised that it felt within our capabilities and that he felt so confident. And, it's a testament to the horse. He's just incredibly brave and he's responsive and he's just a really good boy. He tries really hard. So that was a great takeaway, thinking, it's not just that we kind of scraped around and by the skin of our teeth made it. It was, it felt like we were really, riding the course as it should have been ridden and answering the questions, as the course designer kind of laid them out. And that was obviously to do with the preparation, but I think more than anything, because Marilyn Little, who's coached me for a number of years, walked the course with me and gave me an incredibly detailed plan about how we were going to execute it, not only from a general point of view, but from the point of view of my horse, who she knows really well. So I think without having a plan like that, it wouldn't have been nearly as smooth. So that would be sort of the main takeaway. And then the other ones would just be that, eventing is 3 phases, but when you're at a huge event like that, it feels like there's 50 phases. Like there's so many different things you've had to do, and you have to do. And it's not that I haven't been to kind of a big event before. I've done 4 stars, obviously, to qualify, but I think at that level, there's so much at stake, and there's so many kind of details that need to be really looked after in order for it to go well. And there's so many ways that it can go wrong, you know, and you can just be totally unlucky at times. So, you know, that's a big takeaway. And I think as I, you know, hopefully have the opportunity to do more of them, I will get a better idea and kind of feel more comfortable with all the various parts of how things work. But yeah, it was a huge privilege to be there. And I absolutely loved sort of watching William Foxpitt school his horse on Wednesday afternoon, and, you know, meeting the German woman who had come over and, you know, was really friendly. And, you know, there was a great sense of everybody being just incredibly happy to be there. Even people who had been doing, you know, this may have been their 100th 5-star or whatever it may have been. It's still really inspiring to think, you know, this is for them a really big deal too. So it was very exciting.
So it really told you that you belong there at the 5-star level, and it must have done a lot for your confidence and your courage, I would imagine.
Yeah, I think it did give me confidence. And I think the horse himself gives me a lot of confidence. And so what I reflected on a little bit was that, not that he's actually the perfect 5-star horse by any means, but in terms of the way the cross-country horse he has become, he's ideal in the sense that he's very fast. He's strong, but he's not unrideable. And he has a great front end. So, you know, that combination at the end of the course where a couple of people fell, you know, and it wasn't a particularly hard jump, but it was just a bit of a downhill log, and some horses were leaving legs. You know, I don't think Bendigo's ever left a leg in his life. And I just reflected on later, it took me sort of a while to think about it, what I could do to train the next horses that I want to make 5-star horses to go cross country like he does. Because I think, you know, he could have a little bit more scope. He could maybe be a little bit easier to turn, but in terms of the way that he attacks jumps and his understanding of different cross country questions is amazing. And, you know, it's despite me making a lot of mistakes on him. So hopefully I can make less mistakes on the next horses, but also kind of train them to go and be as confident as he is, which is no easy feat, and is also, you know, no horse is exactly like another horse. So I think the best people in the world, like for me, it's always Chris Burton that I think of. Every horse you watch him on goes pretty much the same way on cross country, especially, but in every phase. And it's not like he rides horses that are all exactly the same. They're kind of different. They're built differently. They're, you know, some of them have more blood or whatever, but the way that he trains them is so exact and, you know, the same, basically trains them all the same. When you watch them, I mean, obviously I haven't seen them in person, but on the TV, you can't hardly tell them apart because they all kind of go exactly the same way and are extremely rideable and jump the same way and everything. So that's something that sort of put a little bug in my brain about, okay, now that I've done 5-star cross country and I want to be doing it in 2 or 3 years or whatever on the other horses, what will they need in their toolbox to make them successful?
You've picked a fellow countryman there in Chris Burton, so maybe that's another goal, to ride on the team with him one day.
Yeah, that would be a huge privilege. I think I'm a little bit far from that goal, but we've been actually really lucky on our squad. I'm on the next squad for the Australian High Performance. We've had lots of Zoom calls in the last year or so. And one of the repeat speakers, I think he's been on maybe 2 or 3 times, has been Chris. And he's spilled the goods about his, training and his philosophies and things like that. So it's been great to be able to learn from him.
Yeah, a wonderful role model for sure. Mm-hmm. Well, before I let you go, Emma, I've got to touch on your other skill, which actually became known this spring when biographies were starting to be written about you and articles leading up to your first 5-star there in Kentucky. And that is your musical skills. Tell us about them.
Yeah. I play the piano and started at a fairly young age. And so was quite serious about it when I was in school and high school. Do it a bit less now. And, just some things have to drop as life gets busy. But I'm still, love the music. And maybe at some point we'll get back to doing it a bit more seriously.
So the expression classical pianist then really does belong to you. You don't just play the piano. I think it's a little bit more sophisticated than that from what I'm gathering. Am I right?
Yeah.
And so what do you prefer to play when you do have time?
In terms of like a composer, probably yes. Chopin is one of my favorites. Yeah.
Yes. Yes, no doubt. Being a classical pianist and writing for piano, I mean, he really is obviously a lot of inspiration there from his music for the piano. Now, this is what we often hear. We learn musical instruments when we're young, and then we drift away because we don't have time. We get on with the rest of our lives, and this may happen to you. But how much do you enjoy it as a sort of, switch off therapy, take your mind off whatever else you're doing in the world, and just your sort of go-to quiet place? Do you think, does that have a role for you, a place for you in your life and time now?
Yeah. And I think it's a little bit similar to the writing. When you do something that's familiar to you, it can just help you relax and I don't know. It's the repetition of what you're doing, and it doesn't really matter what your kind of hobby is or skill or whatever it may be. Being able to do something that you feel like you've mastered is a great thing. And there's always more challenges ahead. Just like with riding a horse, there's always things you can improve and new things to learn. So
Yeah, plenty of choice there with classical composers. And I think it's something that once you have that skill, you'll always have. It's like riding a bicycle too, right? Isn't it? I mean, you just never lose it, but you have to keep playing. Don't lose, don't let that talent go to waste, Emma. You never know when you're going to use it sometime.
Exactly.
Well, it's been great to catch up with you and hear more about what you're doing now and what you're planning to do in the future. We will come back and find out which way your law career went in a couple of years' time. You probably decide by then, hopefully.
We'll see. Yeah, stay tuned.
Stay tuned for that. But in the meanwhile, we'll catch up with you at Fair Hill in the fall. How many horses will you have there? Obviously, Bendigo in the 5-star, but will you take anything else? Will you take the mares?
I think they're having a 3-star as well. So I'm not sure whether, it would be basically Redfern would potentially do that, but I'm not sure whether she would be either qualified or ready for that. So yeah, I expect to see Bendigo, and we'll be at kind of other 3-day events, probably Morven Park, and something else. We'll see how the season unfolds.
Great. Well, we look forward to catching up with you out there, Emma. Thank you very much indeed for taking time to come on the show. Great to meet you even virtually.
Thank you, Chris.
And if you'd like to follow Emma on social media, you'll find the links to her social media in the show notes accompanying this episode. That's at wispsports.com. And you can also follow us, of course, on social media at wispsports. We'd love to hear from you anytime. If you have any comments or questions or suggestions for guests for this or any of our shows, do drop us a line to info@wispsports.com. Until the next time, thank you for listening and helping us turn up the volume on women's sports. Goodbye for now.